This is OnePlus's best and most beautiful phone yet. There's a bold new glass design in 3 colours, a super tall display with a notch, and optional gesture navigation. That's in addition to all the across-the-board improvements we expect to see from a 2018 flagship. I'm Alex from Android Central, and this is our first look at the OnePlus 6. So this is OnePlus's first glass-backed flagship phone, which means that while the curves of the 5 and 5T haven't gone away completely, the device does have its own unique feel. There are 3 colours to choose from at launch: Mirror Black, which is glossy, Midnight Black, which has a soft matte finish, and Silk White, which has that same silky finish, only with a rose gold trim. Mirror Black is a little easier to hold onto, while the matte versions can be a little bit slippery. The OnePlus 6 has the illusion of seeming much larger than the 5 and 5T, but in fact the overall footprint is basically identical. What makes the 6 seem so big is that it now boasts a 6.28-inch 19:9 display, making it one of the most bezel-less Android flagships we've seen. The trade-off of course is that you need to deal with a display cutout up top, though you can disable this in software. There's still a little bit of a chin down below as well, but this is less noticeable than rivals like the Honor 10. The display is a Full HD Plus Optic AMOLED panel, so still 1080p and change, but it's still bright and vivid as well, and free from any jelly scrolling nonsense like we saw in the OnePlus 5. The switch to glass on the back doesn't get you wireless charging, OnePlus is still focusing on its dash charge technology there, and the battery isn't any bigger than the 5 or 5T either, it's still 3300 mAh. But OnePlus says the efficiency savings of the Optic AMOLED display and the Snapdragon 845 processor should make up for the power draw of the larger screen. In fact, let's just get that spec sheet out of the way here. The main choice you have when you're buying a OnePlus 6, aside from the colour, is RAM and storage. The base model has 6GB of RAM and 64GB of storage of $529, then you can step up to 8 plus 128 for another $50, or go to the maxed out 8 plus 256 for another $50 on top of that. That's a little more than the launch price of the OnePlus 5 and 5T, but really it's still shockingly affordable for all the high-end hardware you're getting here. Plus, we're no longer dealing with a super generic design like we were a year ago. OnePlus's trademark alert slider is still here, relocated onto the right-hand side now for easier one-handability. Oh, and yes, there is still a headphone jack in case you were wondering. You also get water resistance, kinda. OnePlus isn't committing to any particular IP rating, but it is calling the 6 water resistant, while adding it doesn't recommend submerging the device in water, so take that confusing message for whatever it's worth. Your OnePlus 6 will probably be okay if it gets a drink poured over it, just don't throw it in the sea. The camera setup of the OnePlus 6 has attracted a lot of speculation in the run-up to launch, but there's actually not a whole lot that's interesting here, just a solid upgrade to the optics of the 16-megapixel main camera and a 20-megapixel secondary shooter that's only used for portrait mode. That main camera is now 19% larger than the 5Ts and uses an f1.7 lens with optical stabilization. The larger sensor size and OIS should help out the OnePlus 6 in low light, which was one of the areas where the 5 and 5T were comparatively weak. But it does seem like a bit of a waste that the second camera isn't used for anything besides depth sensing for that portrait mode. That means when you tap into 2x zoom, you're just getting a digital crop and not true telephoto. But to make up for the lack of new photo features, the OnePlus 6 does bring slow-mo video for the first time, up to 480 frames per second in 720p or 240 frames per second in 1080p, each for up to a minute at a time. There's also a new 4K 60 shooting mode as well. Around the front is the same 16-megapixel camera as the 5T behind an f2.0 lens. Unlike the 5T, this helps to enable super fast face unlock, which is actually the default way to unlock the phone when you first set it up. Fear not though, there is also a more traditional fingerprint scanner around the back. Face Unlock is part of OnePlus's Oxygen OS software, which is now up to version 5.1 based on Android 8.1 Oreo. The look, feel, and blazing performance will be familiar to anyone who's used a 5 or 5T. There are no drastic visual changes here, and the software remains close to stock Android, with standout features like gesture shortcuts and the widget shelf. However, there are a couple of new features to talk about here. It's fitting that with such a huge screen, OnePlus now gives you an easy way to dedicate the entire thing to your apps and content. So the OnePlus 6 has an optional gesture navigation system that lets you go back with a swipe on either side of the screen, go home with a swipe in the middle, or scroll through recent apps with a swipe and hold. It's closer to the iPhone X way of doing things than it is to what we're seeing in the current Android P beta, but it is worth playing around with. A screen as big as this also makes for a great canvas for games, and OnePlus has also built out a new gaming mode to help you avoid distractions and maximise performance as you play. And that's just the software you can see. OnePlus says it's also made countless optimizations to the phone's performance, including tweaks to the way it renders apps UIs to make the whole thing silky smooth. And if you've used a OnePlus phone before, then it should be no surprise to learn this thing absolutely flies. That's all we can say about the OnePlus 6 for now. Stay tuned for our full review of a promising phone that once again looks set to shake up the affordable flagship category. Subscribe to Android Central on YouTube so you don't miss that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.